From WTDG Toledo, Bridges, with your host, Donnie Miller, connecting our community with information about issues and opportunities.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Tony Geptis filling in for Donnie Miller this week. And with me, we have three familiar faces with the Toledo City Council. We have Council President Joe McNamara, also Councilman Mike Craig here, he's in the 3rd District, and at-large Councilman George Sarantu. And we're going to get right to some of the issues facing the folks in Toledo. In particular, this past week, we have a new council member who's been appointed, and that is Sean Enright. And there was a bit of a contentious situation. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I haven't been to a council meeting in quite some time because I used to be on a night shift, and now it seems as though the meetings would take place around my bedtime. But from what I understand, there was a bit of a situation, a stalemate that happened on this past Tuesday. Maybe one of you could reiterate.
Sure. The Democratic Party endorsed Sean Enright, and Mike Craig and I consistently voted for Jack Ford. And at least speaking for myself, one of the reasons why I supported Jack Ford was to make sure that African Americans were fairly represented on Toledo City Council. In the history of our 12-member council, there has almost always been an African American serving as one of the at-large seats. And when you look at the population of the city of Toledo, about 30% is African American. Making sure that their representation, that council looks like the population it serves, is very important to me. And I thought that was an important issue. And the other issue for why I voted for Jack Ford was the fact that he was the most qualified person to do the job. I mean, Jack has been serving this community for decades, both in the private sector in terms of starting nonprofits which have helped the community, like SASE, Adelante. He started CareNet. Jack served as House Minority Leader. He served on City Council before, and he was Mayor of Toledo. So in terms of qualifications, in terms of who can help move us forward, and in terms of making sure that African Americans were fairly represented on council, I voted for Jack, and I thought that he would have done the best job.
Gotcha. And Councilman Enright, I just want to say that he's filling the seat vacated by Councilman Copeland,
right,
who is now the Lucas County Recorder.
Correct.
Right. And Councilman Copeland, also African American. And to say that there's no representation for the at-large, it's not to say there are no African Americans on council.
Right. No, there's still 2 African Americans on council, 2 district members, Councilman Riley and Councilwoman Hicks Hudson. But if you look at historically who has served on council, there's always been that one African American at-large seat, except for a very brief period in 2002, 2003. So just in terms of keeping the council diverse and keeping it representative of the community, that was a really important issue to me. And it was a very difficult decision, and there was a lot of contention, and there still is over it. But you know, the thing to do now is the decision was made. I respect the decision that was made by my colleagues, and it's time to get back to work and move the city forward.
Gotcha. And we'll move forward here to Councilman Craig, who you were steadfast in lockstep here with your colleague, and you said you were going to stick to your guns on this one.
Yeah, you know what, I really felt that Jack was the most qualified candidate. I guess what I found kind of disturbing was that the Democratic Party tried to shut down all debate. They wanted everybody in lockstep, and that's just not productive. You know, short story. About a year or so ago, Councilman McNamara, we formed an electric a committee to study energy usage in the city. And when he first formed the committee, I looked at the list of people, and I just shook my head. I'm like, man, you know, there are a lot of people on here that just aren't going to be very agreeable to some of the things we need to get done. And that was correct. It was a good assessment. But you know what? When the recommendations came out of that committee, they all sailed through council because we had a very robust debate before those initiatives were put together. We've got an energy special improvement district in Toledo that is the largest in the state. It's the only successful one in the state. And I was at a port board meeting last week, and they indicated that the energy special improvement district is now self-sustaining. Every year they bring in enough money to finance new projects that they're going to be doing, in the current year. So we wouldn't have gotten that passed without a robust debate, and there was a lot of dissension amongst the committee members. That's just good policy, and good leaders encourage, you know, a diversity of opinion, and that's important. And to have diversity on council is very important, not just in, you know, not just racial diversity, but diversity of opinion, because we need to look at everybody's viewpoint. You know, this is not a homogeneous city. There are a lot of different viewpoints, and there are a lot of different interest groups, and they all need to be represented. And I thought that Jack would do the best in bringing diversity to council and being a terrific candidate.
And you respect the process, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes.
With the way
Yep.
it got
And you
there.
know what? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, council has spoken, and we've got to move forward now.
All right. And let's move down to Councilman Saratu as well, who's a familiar face on council, a longtime council member, and you cast the deciding vote, from what I understand. This came down to a vote twice, and then you made this deciding
Yes.
vote the third time around. Go ahead.
On the
tell us.
first ballot, I nominated who the Republican Party wanted, and that was Constantine Stamos. And Mr. Stamos received one vote, that was mine. My two Republican colleagues, Ludeman and Winooski, chose not to support the Republican nominee. On the second ballot, I voted for Sandy Spang. Quickly drew the conclusion things were not going in the Spang direction. And on the third ballot, I decided that the person that had the most votes at that point was Mr. Enright. And I also felt that both sides on that issue were not going to see any type of movement. And I felt in order to waste more time, I just felt to eliminate a waste of time, I just felt it was time to vote for Mr. Enright and get it over with. The voters ultimately, in less than 10 months, Tony, are going to decide who will occupy that seat, because Sean will have to be on the ballot along with all the other at-large members. So I felt that was important. I must also add that if we are concerned about diversity, and that is very important, more than half of the citizens of Toledo are female, and we only have 2 female members of City Council. So Sandy Spang would have certainly helped elevate women and given us a little more diversity on the council.
Sure. And what it sounds to me like is this is not so much about Councilman Enright, it's about who you initially wanted to be in that position, be it Jack Ford or Sandy Spangler. So is there a chance that any of the candidates that, I don't know if you've spoken with them, or the ones that you were going to appoint, are they going to wage a campaign? Are we going to see?
My impression is all 3 of them, will be running, and I think that's good for the citizenry. I'm in my last year. I'm term limited on City Council, so I think the voters will have a lot of diversity to choose from.
All right, and we are just getting into 2013 here. The budget is a big issue that we'll be looking at ahead here, and the state of the city. And I think when we come back, we will talk more about the outlook for 2013.